Logan Carter yanked his daughter's pink backpack from the passenger seat, barely managing to shut the rusted truck door before it groaned louder than his bones did after a double shift. "Come on, Hope. We're gonna be late for Miss Tanya's," he said, hoisting the sleepy 5-year-old into his arms. Hope yawned against his shoulder. "You forgot my juice box." "I'll get you an extra one after work, promise." He kissed her forehead and jogged up the steps of the small home daycare. Tanya gave him a sympathetic smile as she opened the door. "Still doing landscaping and odd jobs." "Anything that pays," Logan said, handing her Hope. "Picked up a last-minute yard job out in Westbridge this morning. Fancy area, probably just a hedge trim or something." He didn't say it, but he really hoped it was more than that. Rent was due in 5 days. By the time Logan pulled up to the Westbridge property, he thought he had the wrong address. The house was massive stone exterior, glass walls, sleek black gates. He double-checked the number. Yep, this was it. He rang the bell, adjusting his grimy baseball cap and dusting off his jeans. The woman who opened the door didn't look like someone who needed help with yard work. She looked like she stepped out of a magazine. Long dark hair, a crisp white blouse tucked into tailored slacks, and heels that probably cost more than his paycheck. She had a phone in one hand, a leather planner in the other, and an annoyed look on her face. "You're the landscaper?" she asked, eyes scanning him like she wasn't convinced. "Logan Carter," he said. "You called about a snake in the garden." She blinked. "Right, sorry. It was curled near the stone path this morning." "Have a meeting in?" Her eyes darted to her watch. 7 minutes. "Can't have it slithering around when the press arrives." "Press?" he asked. "I'm a CEO," she said simply, like that explained everything. "Ariana Tate and Wilder Pharmaceuticals." He nodded slowly. "I'll take care of it." She hesitated. "If you get bit, don't sue me." Logan grinned. "I can't afford a lawyer." That made her pause, then for the first time she cracked a small laugh. "Fair enough." He headed around the side of the house, walking through a perfectly manicured garden that probably had its own Instagram account. He was halfway down the path when he spotted it curled beneath a stone bench, dark green and still. "All right, buddy," Logan whispered, grabbing a long tree branch and staying low. "You're gonna have to find a new place to crash." He nudged it gently, and the thing hissed, uncoiling fast. Logan's heart jumped, but he didn't back off. Instead, he managed to hook the branch beneath its body and lift slowly, carefully walking it toward the woods behind the property. His arms shook a little, but he didn't flinch. By the time he returned to the front, Ariana was on the phone near the porch, but she paused when she saw him. "Gone," he said. "Took it to the woods. Looked like a harmless rat snake, but I'd still keep an eye out." "You didn't run," she said, almost to herself. "Nope." "You okay? You didn't get bit?" He shook his head. "I've had worse. I'm a single dad. Nothing scares you more than a toddler with scissors." Her lips twitched again. "What's her name?" "Hope. She's 5, smart as hell, eats more than a linebacker." Ariana surprised herself by laughing again. Something about the way Logan said it, proud, loving, exhausted, cut through her usual guardedness. "How much do I owe you?" she asked. He scratched the back of his neck. "Honestly, I didn't expect to be paid for pulling a snake out, but if you've got any other yard work, I'm free all week." She looked at him for a beat too long. He was rough around the edges, sure. Worn jeans, sunburned neck, hands that were clearly used to hard work, but there was something about him steady, solid. "You're hired," she said. "For what?" "Garden maintenance. Weekly, I'll pay above market, you'll invoice me." He raised a brow. "You sure I'm not exactly polished?" "I don't need polished," Ariana said. "I need dependable." They stared at each other for a second longer than was normal. Then she blinked and turned away. "Have to get ready. The press will be here soon. I'll have someone send you the gate code." He nodded and started back toward his truck, but he couldn't help glancing back once. She was still there, watching him walk away. Over the next 2 weeks, Logan came back every Tuesday and Friday. He trimmed hedges, pulled weeds, planted new hydrangeas, and at Ariana's request installed a small herb garden outside her kitchen window. At first, she only spoke to him in passing, but then there were longer conversations. Hope's drawings taped to her truck dashboard, Ariana's stories about her late-night boardroom battles. Her laugh came easier now, he noticed. One afternoon, while he was pruning the roses, she walked outside barefoot with a glass of lemonade and 2 slices of banana bread. "I baked," she said, awkwardly placing the plate on the garden table. He smiled and washed his hands with the hose. "You baked, you." "Don't act so shocked. I'm not completely useless." He sat across from her. "You've got flour on your shirt." She looked down and huffed. "Damn it." He laughed. "It's cute." That stopped her. Her eyes flickered to his, uncertain for a moment. "I mean it," he said, quieter now. "You don't have to try so hard." "I don't know how to not try hard," she admitted. He looked at her like he saw through all of it, the sharp suits, the headlines, the armor. "Maybe you should let someone help you once in a while. No one ever stays long enough to." "I'm not no one." Her breath caught. Before either of them could say more, her phone rang. She stood up fast, flustered. "I have to take this, but..." "Stay, finish the bread." He watched her walk away again. Something was happening, something he hadn't expected, something real. And neither of them knew it yet, but Ariana Tate, the woman with the glass walls and guarded heart, was falling hard. For the struggling dad who wasn't afraid of snakes. Or her. The first time Logan saw Ariana without heels was on a cloudy Saturday morning, when she appeared outside with a trowel in one hand and a stubborn expression on her face. "You're early," he said, setting down a bag of compost near the oak tree he was mulching. "I'm not here to supervise," she replied, kneeling beside a flower bed. "I wanted to replant the lavender. I don't like how the color clashes with the roses." He raised a brow. "You know flowers clash." "Don't sound so surprised. I read up on it last night. Apparently lavender needs better drainage." He crouched beside her slowly. "You read about plants on a Friday night." I needed a break from negotiating patent contracts. This felt cleaner. She didn't look at him when she said it. Her hands were already in the dirt, gloves smeared, blouse sleeves rolled halfway to her elbows. Logan watched her press the soil with care, not the practiced kind, but the kind that comes from trying hard at something new. "You ever do this before?" he asked. "Not unless you count growing basil in a mason jar during college." "I don't." She glanced at him, then laughed under her breath. "Fair." By noon, Ariana's hair was pulled into a crooked knot and her cheeks were streaked with dust. Logan didn't say anything, but something about the imperfections suited her more than the polish ever had. She sat back on her heels, brushing her hands on her thighs. "Why isn't this easier?" "Because you're used to controlling everything," he said simply. She tilted her head. "Is that a dig?" "No, it's a truth." Ariana looked out at the garden. "You've made it look like it belongs in a magazine." He shrugged. "It's not just about trimming things. Plants either grow together or they don't. You gotta figure out what they need, what they don't." That sounds suspiciously like relationship advice. "Maybe it is." She didn't answer that. Instead, she stood and walked toward the house. "I'm getting coffee. You want some?" He followed her to the back door. "Sure, if you're offering." Inside, the kitchen was open and modern, with stainless steel appliances and a marble island that probably cost more than his truck. But it wasn't the space that caught his attention. It was the way she moved through it like she didn't spend much time there. "You don't cook much, do you?" he asked, leaning against the counter while she poured coffee into 2 ceramic mugs. "I reheated soup once this week." "Sounds gourmet." "I excel at ordering delivery." He took the mug she handed him. "Thanks." They stood in companionable silence for a beat, the rain beginning to tap lightly against the windows. She glanced up at the sound. "You ever wonder what you'd be doing if things had gone differently?" she asked, voice quieter now. He didn't answer right away. "Every day." She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "What happened to Hope's mom?" "She left when Hope was still in diapers. Said she wasn't cut out for diapers and bills and staying in one place." Ariana's gaze softened. "I'm sorry." "I'm not. Hope's better off with people who show up." She looked like she wanted to say something else but stopped herself. Then, "Do you ever date?" He raised an eyebrow. "That a personal question or a professional one?" "Professional," she said immediately, then added, "mostly." He took a sip of the coffee. "I don't exactly have a line of women knocking on my door. Most people don't think a broke single dad is a great catch." "I think they are wrong." That hung between them, charged and unspoken. Before he could respond, her phone rang from the other room. She hesitated, but eventually went to answer it. Logan stepped outside again, letting the drizzle dampen his sleeves as he watched the lavender sway gently in the breeze. He didn't know what this was becoming, but it was starting to feel like something he hadn't let himself hope for in a long time. Later that week, Ariana showed up at the daycare unannounced. Hope was drawing with markers on the carpet when Tanya opened the door. Ariana looked unsure, holding a small paper bag in one hand and a nervous sort of energy in the other. "Is it okay if I say hello?" she asked Tanya. "Of course, she's right inside." Ariana stepped in, crouching beside Hope. "Hi, I'm Ariana." Hope looked up, blinking. "You're the lady with the big house." Ariana smiled. "That's me. I brought you something." She handed over the bag, and Hope eagerly opened it. Inside was a set of colored pencils with glittery tips and a sketch pad with thick pages. "You said you liked drawing," Ariana offered. Hope grinned. "I do." "Good. I thought maybe you could draw something for your dad." Hope nodded enthusiastically. "I'll draw the snake." Ariana laughed. "You remember that?" "Daddy told me. He said it was huge." Of course he did. When Logan arrived later, Ariana was sitting cross-legged on the floor, helping Hope shade in the snake's tongue with a red pencil. He stepped inside, freezing for a fraction of a second before clearing his throat. "This is unexpected." Ariana stood, brushing her hands on her slacks. "I was nearby, thought I'd say hi." Hope ran to him with the sketchpad. "Look, she got me these." He looked at the art. "That's a terrifying snake. You did good, kiddo." Hope beamed. Ariana glanced at him. "She's amazing." "She is," he agreed. "She gets that from her mom." She looked down at her heels. "I should probably go." He nodded. "Thanks for the pencils, that was kind." She looked up at him, something unreadable in her expression. "Logan, there's a gala next Friday. It's for the Children's Cancer Trust. I'm on the board. I was wondering if you'd come." He blinked. "Me?" "You as my guest." He hesitated. "Ariana, I clean dirt out of flower beds for a living. And I run a company full of people who pretend not to care. I'd rather spend an evening with someone real." He didn't answer right away. Hope tugged his sleeve. "Is there cake?" He laughed. "Probably." Hope gasped. "You have to go." He met Ariana's eyes. "All right, I'll go." She smiled, just enough to make his heart feel like it might betray him. And just like that, the next page of whatever this was began to write itself. The valet glanced twice at Logan's borrowed navy suit before handing him the claim tag. Logan stepped aside, adjusting the tie Ariana had chosen for him the day before. He'd never worn anything this tailored, and the collar itched like it was trying to remind him he didn't belong here. The gala was held at the Langford estate, a sprawling mansion turned event venue with marble floors, sweeping staircases, and chandeliers that looked like they belonged in a royal palace. A string quartet played near the entrance, and guests in sleek gowns and tuxedos sipped champagne as though it were tap water. Logan felt like he was walking into a movie he hadn't auditioned for. Ariana met him at the base of the staircase, her dress a deep, midnight hue that shimmered beneath the lights. She wore no necklace, no bracelet, just earrings that caught the light when she tilted her head to smile. "You clean up better than I expected," she said. "Let's hope I don't spill anything on this thing. Had to Google how to put on cufflinks." She leaned in slightly. "You did them backward." He looked down, seriously. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing his wrist as she adjusted the metal. "There, now you look like someone who belongs here." "I don't," he said quietly. Ariana's voice was calm. "You do if I say you do." They walked through the crowd together, and Logan caught snippets of conversations about hedge funds, offshore accounts, and investment projections. More than a few people gave him curious glances, but Ariana didn't waver. She introduced him with ease to board members, to donors, to a senator who raised an eyebrow at Logan's calloused hands but shook his hand anyway. Eventually, they found a quiet moment near the balcony, away from the orchestra and the flash of cameras. "You didn't have to bring me," he said. "I wanted to." "Why?" She looked out at the twinkling city lights beyond the terrace. "Because you don't ask me what I do for a living like it's the only thing that matters. Because you notice things most people ignore. And because every time I think I've figured you out, you surprise me again." Logan leaned on the railing, watching her more than the view. "You don't let many people in, do you?" "Not anymore," she admitted. "When I took over the company, I had to prove myself every day. Cut people out, friends, boyfriends, anyone who made me feel like I had to choose between being enough and being in charge. And now, I'm still learning how to let people stay." He didn't speak for a moment, then, "You're doing okay so far." She met his eyes, and for the first time all evening, she looked a little uncertain. Their moment was interrupted by a woman in a silver gown approaching with a tight-lipped smile. "Ariana, we need you for the photo op downstairs. The press is setting up." "I'll be down in 2 minutes," Ariana replied. The woman's eyes flicked to Logan, then back to Ariana. "Of course." As she walked away, Logan exhaled. "You sure you want me in that photo?" "I don't need you in the photo. I want you in the room." "I've never been anyone's +1 to anything fancy before." She stepped closer. "Consider this the first of many." He didn't answer right away, but the look in his eyes said more than his words ever could. Later that night, they returned to her house in separate cars. Hope was asleep at Tanya's, and the quiet in the house felt different now, thicker, charged. Ariana kicked off her heels near the door and poured herself a glass of water. Logan lingered by the kitchen island, unsure if he should sit, step closer, or say goodnight. "I meant what I said on the balcony," she said, turning to face him. "I know." She hesitated. "When I was 14, I used to sit behind the science building during lunch and draw formulas in a notebook because I didn't know how to talk to people. Figured numbers didn't disappoint you the way people did. And now you talk to boardrooms full of them. Still don't trust half of them. Do you trust me?" She walked to him, stopping just an arm's length away. I don't know what this is yet, but when you're around, it's easier to breathe, and that's rare for me. He reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. It's rare for me too. She didn't pull away. He kissed her then slow, certain, and without hesitation. When they finally stepped apart, her voice was barely above a whisper. You're not afraid of much, are you? Only one thing. She tilted her head. What? Letting myself want this, and losing it. Her expression shifted, something vulnerable breaking through. Then don't lose it. Neither of them spoke after that. The silence held the weight of everything unspoken, everything building. The next morning, Logan woke before sunrise. He left a note on her kitchen counter and drove to pick up Hope. She ran into his arms, clinging tightly, and he realized how much of him lived in that hug. Tanya handed him a folded flyer. Hope got this from school. Career Day is next week. They're asking parents to come in and talk about what they do. Logan looked at the paper. He couldn't imagine standing in front of a room full of kids talking about digging holes and pulling weeds. He folded it and tucked it into his jacket. As they walked to the truck, Hope looked up at him. Are you gonna come? To what? Career Day, she said. You're the best at your job. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Later that evening, Ariana called. This morning was quiet without you, she said. I had to get Hope. She asked me if I'd come to Career Day. Are you? I don't know yet. Why not? Because I don't think being a broke landscaper is what they want to hear about. There was a pause. Then you tell them the truth, she said, that you build things and protect people and show up when it matters. He didn't answer right away. Then you really believe that? I wouldn't have kissed you if I didn't. Something inside him shifted. He didn't know where this was going, but for the first time in a long time, he wanted to find out. Logan shifted uncomfortably in the miniature blue chair, surrounded by a sea of crayons, construction paper, and 5-year-olds cross-legged on the carpet. Hope was beside him, eyes wide with pride as she clutched her glitter-covered name tag. The classroom walls were plastered with stick-figure family drawings and alphabet charts, but Logan barely noticed. His palms were damp. Mr. Carter, the teacher said brightly, whenever you're ready. He cleared his throat. Hi, I'm Hope's dad. I work with plants. I take care of trees, flowers, gardens, and sometimes have to deal with things like raccoons and snakes. A few kids gasped. One boy raised his hand. Did you really fight a snake? Hope answered before Logan could. He took it by the tail and threw it into the woods. It hissed. Logan chuckled. It wasn't quite that dramatic, but yeah, sometimes the job surprises you. The teacher smiled. And what do you like most about what you do? Logan glanced down at Hope, then back at the class. I like watching things grow. You put in the work, water it right, give it sunlight and time, and eventually something beautiful shows up. You just have to be patient and believe it'll get there. The teacher clapped, and the kids followed, their applause uneven and enthusiastic. Logan stood, heart lighter than when he'd walked in. Afterward, Hope tugged his sleeve. Can we get ice cream now? Only if you promise not to tell people I threw a snake. She grinned, no promises. Later that evening, Logan pulled into Ariana's driveway just as the sun dipped low behind her house. The light hit the windows like gold. He hadn't planned to stop by, but he found himself there anyway, Hope in the backseat with a purple tongue and a sticky chin. She opened the door in a soft sweater and jeans, barefoot, with 2 glasses of wine already on the counter. I figured you'd come, she said, her voice calm. Didn't have anything else that felt right today, he replied. Hope ran past him, calling for the cat she'd named Marshmallow on their last visit. "I saw the photos from the gala," Ariana said, handing him a glass. "People won't stop asking about you." He raised an eyebrow. "What are they saying?" "That I've gone soft, that I brought a mystery date, that I smiled too much." He took a sip and leaned against the counter. "You regret it." She looked up at him. "I've run a company through lawsuits, takeovers, and a pandemic. If I can handle all that, I can survive the fallout of falling for someone honest." His breath caught just for a second. "You're saying that out loud now?" She nodded. "I don't want to second-guess something that makes sense when everything else doesn't." He set the glass down and stepped closer. "This still doesn't make sense to me. You're used to private jets and press conferences. I'm worried about gas money." Ariana didn't flinch. "I don't care about the difference. Care that I've never had someone ask me how I'm really doing and mean it. Care that hope looks at you like you hung the stars." He hesitated. "What if I let you down?" "I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for honesty, and the truth is, I'm terrified, but I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." He kissed her then, not out of impulse, out of clarity. When they pulled apart, Hope was standing in the doorway. "Are you gonna be my stepmom now?" Ariana blinked, caught off guard. "That's not how it works exactly." Hope shrugged. "I'm just asking because you're here a lot, and Daddy smiles more when you are." Logan crouched beside her. "We haven't figured everything out yet, kiddo." Ariana knelt too, brushing Hope's curls away from her forehead. "But I like being here, and I like making him smile." Hope thought about that, then nodded. "Okay, you can stay." The next few weeks passed not in a rush, but in a steady rhythm. Ariana invited Logan and Hope to a board-sponsored festival fundraiser. He helped her set up tents and string lights while Hope made bracelets with the volunteers. Ariana let Logan paint her hand with henna, and he didn't tell her until later that he'd messed up the flower on purpose so it would look like a heart. At Logan's place, Ariana showed up one Sunday with groceries and a recipe she'd printed off. The kitchen was too small, the oven ran hot, and the rice burned. Still, they ate on the couch with Hope between them, watching a movie she picked and laughing at all the wrong parts. One night, Ariana took Logan to a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. The table had candles, and the waiter knew her by name. She ordered wine with words he couldn't pronounce, but when he looked overwhelmed, she leaned over and whispered, "You don't have to impress anyone, least of all me." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I used to think I wasn't enough, not for Hope, not for anything better." "You are," she said. "You've been enough since the first time you didn't run." It wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. A month later, Ariana stood beside Logan at the park as Hope raced toward the swings. The sun was bright, and Logan's hand was warm in hers. He turned to her. "You ever think about what's next?" She nodded. "Every day." "I've been thinking about it too." A pause, then. "I want to build something, with you, something that doesn't need fixing every season." She looked at him, eyes steady. "Then let's plant it." "I don't have a ring yet," he said, "but I will." "I'm not asking for a ring," she replied. "I'm asking for a future." He kissed her temple, his voice quiet. "Then you've got it." Hope yelled from the swings, "Push me higher." They walked over together, Ariana letting go of his hand only to help him lift Hope. She stepped back, watching them laugh, watching Logan push their daughter higher and higher still. And in that moment, with the wind in her hair and sunlight warming her skin, Ariana knew. She hadn't fallen for him because of what he did. She'd fallen for who he was when no one was watching. And she'd never felt safer in her life. A warm breeze drifted through the open windows of Logan's small house, carrying with it the scent of fresh cut grass and lemon from the tree Ariana had planted with Hope a few weeks earlier. Logan stood at the kitchen sink, rinsing off paintbrushes while Hope sat at the table, her tongue sticking out as she carefully colored in a banner that read, "Congratulations." He glanced over his shoulder. "How's it coming?" She held it up, revealing a mess of bright letters and a glittery heart in the corner. "Almost done." Ariana was due to arrive any minute, and for once, Logan didn't feel like the guy just surviving another day. Something had shifted lately, not just in his bank account, although the steady landscaping contracts Ariana had connected him to had helped that too, but in how he saw himself. He wasn't just a single dad doing his best. He was building something with her, something sturdy. When Ariana walked in, she looked different. Not in appearance, she still wore her signature elegance, this time in a soft navy dress and low heels, but in her expression. There was a quiet peace in her eyes he hadn't seen before. Hope jumped up and ran to her, holding out the banner. "It's for you," she said proudly, "because you're not scared of anything anymore." Ariana knelt to accept it, genuinely touched. That might be the kindest lie I've ever heard. Hope giggled and ran outside to check on the lemonade stand. She'd insisted on setting up for the party. Logan wiped his hands on a towel. "She's been working on that all morning. Said it's for you finishing the scary thing." Ariana stepped closer. "It was terrifying, but I did it." Logan raised an eyebrow. "So, what did the board say?" "I told them I'm stepping down from day-to-day operations." His brow furrowed. "You're serious?" "I've been serious about a lot of things that never made me happy. This time, I'm choosing something that does." He leaned back against the counter. "You're walking away from the company you built." "No, I'm walking toward something better. I'll still hold shares, still be on the board. But I've hired someone trust to run the day-to-day. I want mornings without conference calls. I want to say yes to things that don't make sense on paper but feel right." Logan folded his arms, watching her. "And what feels right?" She met his gaze. "You, this, us." Before he could respond, Hope poked her head in. "There's a lady at the lemonade stand who wants to pay with buttons." Logan laughed. "I think we can accept that currency." They followed her outside, where the makeshift stand was already attracting neighbors. Ariana poured lemonade, while Logan handed out cookies. Hope had insisted on baking herself with Ariana's supervision. The sun began to dip low, casting golden light across the yard. Later, after the last cup had been poured and Hope had been tucked into bed, Logan and Ariana sat on the back steps. His hand rested on her knee, her head leaned gently against his shoulder. "I never thought it'd look like this," he said quietly. "What did you think it would look like?" "I figured it'd be alone, doing my best, surviving, maybe getting through it. But now, I feel like I'm finally living." She turned her face toward him. "Can I tell you something I've never told anyone?" "Always." "I used to think love was a transaction, something you earned with success. But with you, it's never felt like that. It just showed up, like sunlight on a closed door." He kissed her then, slow and soft, not from urgency but from understanding. "You opened a lot more than doors, Ariana." She traced the edge of his jaw with her thumb. "I want to be a real part of Hope's life, not just the fun weekends or holidays. I want to be there when she scrapes her knee or wins a spelling bee, if you'll let me." "You already are," he said. "She calls you her honorary boss lady." Ariana laughed, then grew quiet. "I've never wanted kids, not because I didn't like them, but because I didn't think I'd be any good at loving someone that much. And now can't imagine my life without her." Logan's voice turned serious. "We've come a long way. You sure you're ready for all of it?" "I'm not just ready, Logan. I'm all in." He stood and reached into the back pocket of his jeans, pulling out a small velvet box. Ariana froze. "I didn't plan on doing this today," he said, But I realized there's never going to be a perfect moment, just the right one. He opened it. Inside was a ring simple, elegant, and unmistakably hers. I'm not asking you to save me or change your life for me. I'm asking you to keep building this life with me. Marry me. Her eyes filled, but she didn't blink. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Logan Carter, 1,000 times yes. When they kissed, it wasn't a fairy tale ending, it was the start of something real. Something earned, something rooted. 6 months later, under a canopy strung with lights in the backyard they'd planted together, they said their vows in front of a small crowd. Hope walked down the aisle with a crown of wildflowers, holding a drawing she'd made of their new family. They danced barefoot in the grass, surrounded by laughter, music, and the smell of orange blossoms. Logan leaned in close and whispered, "You still think you don't know how to love this much?" Ariana smiled, her forehead pressed to his. "I think I was just waiting for the right person to show me how." And in the home they built, surrounded by the garden that had once been just dirt and roots, they lived a life not of perfection, but of purpose, joy, and love that grew deeper with every season. Theirs was not a story of rescue. It was a story of two people choosing each other freely, fiercely, and forever.